Alright, what's up everyone, Duquesne23 here, and today I'm going to be showing y'all how to set up Race in Halo 5. Now, it's a little bit more complicated than what it was in the past, but once you get the hang of it, it is very easy to be able to do, especially with prefabs and how you can just kind of spawn things in. Now, so it isn't just as simple, you drop down a hill and that is it, or you drop down a hill, put a couple respawn points and that is it. You actually have to script Race to actually work in your map, so it's a little bit more complicated. If you notice here, there's a couple brains, right here, and there's a whole bunch of them up there. So real quick, I will go ahead and go over this whole thing. Now, I'm not going to go over how to do all these brains because that is unbelievably complicated and it will take a very long time for this video. There is documentation though if you would like to be able to learn how to do these type of brains and all that type of stuff yourself. There will be documentation down below in the description. Just go ahead and click on the link in the description and follow the directions, and you'll be able to easily, make, your own little thing like this or something, for your map, for your race map. But of course, if you don't want to do that, if you don't want to take the time to be able to learn all that type of stuff, which that's fine, not everyone wants to be able to do that. I have made a prefab of this entire thing. This is basically right here. All these brains right here are basically the scripting that makes the race game type, that kind of creates the race game type and makes it act like a race game type. So that's what this is. I have an individual prefab for this little, brain group right here, this brain tree right here. And then of course, these are the checkpoints right here, and I do have a prefab for these checkpoints themselves. So basically what y'all can do is y'all can download both of those prefabs and put them into your maps, and the checkpoint prefab and the brain tree prefab up here, and you can drop them into your map and then just change a few little settings there, here and there, and you will actually get, a fully functioning race game type on your map a whole lot easier. So basically what I'm going to show y'all to do right now is how to change, after you drop these things, after you drop those prefabs into your map, what do you got to do? What do you got to change in something to make it work on your map? So basically, once you drop the prefab onto your map, you will have very basic settings. You'll have whatever the default settings is that I put on there. So you'll just have to remember that that it is, it won't necessarily work with your map right away. So the first thing that you're gonna have to do is after you drop it, you just drop that anywhere you want on your map. It doesn't matter where. It doesn't have to be on the track. But then you put your checkpoint prefab right here on the map. Now, basically, you don't need to have these if you don't want to. For the race game type. These are basically just shows waypoints. See those two diamonds over there? That is actually the first checkpoint on this race map that I have created here. And, those two little deals, those two little diamonds are basically these two brains. That brain right there and that brain right there. It basically just tells you as you're racing where the next checkpoint is, and that's what that is for. So I personally would like to keep that on there, so that's why I kept that on, my map here. And, this is the main brain that is the actual checkpoint itself. If you notice, it has the typical hill. And of course, if you want to have the hill showing at all times, you can of course come up right down over here and you can click show on. So that means it will always show. If you notice I deselected it, it always shows the hill as on. So if you want to do that, you can, but I personally would rather have it off. So then it disappears and you have the two little diamonds as your indicator on where the next checkpoint actually is. So what you need to do, guys, as the very first thing is this right here, the very first checkpoint that you need to put down is actually going to be your kind of starting gate or something, if that's, I guess, what you want to call it, your starting gate. So this one, whenever you go into the object properties, you can of course change the size of the boundary and everything however you want, however it'll fit, your map or something like that, and have the spawning order set to 1. So that is the main key thing that you need to do. All right, and then once you do that, it is fairly easy. All you have to do is go over to these little guys right here if you want to have them on your map and do the exact same thing. Just set the spawning order to 1 and go over to the other one and set the spawning order to 1. And there you go. You have, you know, your first little checkpoint, your starting gate type of thing, and it's, you know, set up to 1. And basically all you do is you can just grab these, you know, themselves. You can just, if you want to, you can just grab them all and then you can group them together if you want. And all you have to do is duplicate them. Once you duplicate them, then you just move them, you know, move them all to the next location that you want your next checkpoint to be. Now, I already have another checkpoint, so let's go ahead and go over to my second checkpoint here. And the second checkpoint is right down here, and basically in your second checkpoint it's the same thing. All you have to do is once you place them down, you adjust the little markers where the two little things are on each side of the track, like the two little diamonds, and all you do is have to select your main one and just set this spawning order to 2. Basically this just means this is the, you know, that second checkpoint there. And so pretty much you do the same thing to these side ones, set it to 2. And you know, you set the other one to 2, and then you do the exact same thing, and then you go on. So you follow your track over to here and see if you notice the, you know, I passed through the past checkpoint with my Forge monitor, and so these diamonds showed up on this next checkpoint. And then it's very simple, and all you do is select this one, and if you set it to 3. So that's all you have to do. You put as many checkpoints as you want onto your map. Now, one thing you need to remember though, whenever you are placing checkpoints is you need respawn points with each checkpoint. Now, here's the initial spawn points right here. The initial spawn points are very simple. You make sure the order is set to 0 on your initial spawn points. And I do suggest you put ignore danger. Basically, that ignores if there is enemies nearby. You know, people will still spawn even if there are enemies nearby. And ignore line of sight. So I put both of those to on and, you know, set that one to 0 there. And those could be all the initial spawn points. And I have respawn points up here in the air. You don't need to put them up in the air if you don't want to. You can put them on the ground anywhere, but unfortunately, I didn't really have much room on my map, so I put them up in the air. And these respawn points are there, and you know, you set them also to 0. Basically, these respawn points are here, and which actually I messed up a little bit, and I did not put these to on right there. But basically though, these act as just in case someone drives and dies, they hit a kill boundary or they fall off a cliff or something like that before they get to the very first checkpoint. And guys, this is technically not the first checkpoint. This is just like the starting gate, even though it is spawn order 1. This is just kind of like the starting gate. The first checkpoint was the one after this jump right there. So if people die before they get to the first checkpoint, you need to make sure you have respawn points so they can respawn, before that first checkpoint, since they never actually got to it. So basically, you just want to make sure your respawn points here are also on 0 themselves. So all you have to do is put down some respawn points on your very first checkpoint. That actually, acts as a checkpoint. So this is, my first checkpoint, which of course this is the one that is up for spawn order number 2. And you put down your respawn points anywhere you want, depends on where you want it to have on your track. I put it on the sides, so that's just in case people are driving down the center. If someone is respawning, they will not, run into people driving straight down the center. So basically, these respawn points, you want to make sure you match the spawn order that checkpoint is that's around those respawn points. So this spawn order is number 2. And it's the same thing as, this checkpoint right here. This checkpoint is also spawn order number 2. So all you do is have to match whichever checkpoint is nearby your respawns. Make sure you put all the respawns there. So that basically means that if someone passes through this checkpoint and then they die, they will respawn at, the spawn order number 2, because that was the last checkpoint that they passed through. So if you notice the third checkpoint that I have right here, you go over here to the respawn points, and it is spawn order number 3 right here. So it's the same thing as what it is on this checkpoint right here. So see spawn order number 3. So you keep doing that all the way through your map. You know, you want to go all the way through your map. It's going through, your map's looking beautiful. Everything is wonderful. You have all your checkpoints. Here's one more checkpoint that I have for mine. And then you come over here and here is another checkpoint. And this is actually technically the last checkpoint right here before the little spawn gate area right here. So what you want to do next is you have to make it to where once you pass through the very last checkpoint, you have to indicate which one is actually your last checkpoint before you get to the spawn gate. So you have to be able to indicate that. So this one, that's why whenever I crossed through this one, the diamonds appeared right there. And so you could keep racing, the checkpoints keep reappearing. So basically what you're going to have to do is you have to look at this checkpoint right here, what you have, and I believe it is automatically put on. You got to go to scripts, go to your script 1. Don't mess with any of this stuff right here. Just keep scrolling down until you get to action 3, which is right here. And the channel is Lima. I believe the channel is defaultly set on my prefab as Lima right here. So it's pretty self-explanatory. And then what you want to do is come over here to this brain right here, this little pink brain. It has the pink bulb and it's white and everything. It's on the edge. It's next to the invisible looking brain. You want to go to this one. This one actually determines the, very last checkpoint, this brain right here. So what you want to do is you want to go to your object properties right here. And this one also, it determines how many checkpoints you have on your entire map. So right here, the spawn order number 5, that basically means I only have 5 checkpoints on my map. So here's number 1, like the 1 is the starting gate, then 2, 3, 4, 5, and number 5, this is the very last one, number 5, if you notice, it's the spawning order number 5. So this is the very last checkpoint. The 5th checkpoint is my last checkpoint that I want to have. So you want to make sure you put the spawn order 5 for this brain right here. And then you scroll down over to the script, and all you have to do is scroll down to the action right here and make sure the channel is set to Lima also. If it's not set to Lima, it will not pick up that last checkpoint, back there. That is the, last checkpoint in your entire race map. So make sure you set that to Lima. Having all that type of stuff there, it works. Everything works perfectly fine. And, you should be able to, see your checkpoints now, and it works every single time. So basically what this command console right here does, it kind of resets. If you notice that the little diamonds disappeared over there, it kind of resets all the, race game modes, so you can actually test stuff in Forge. So right here, there's the little spawn gate. It says go, and then there's the first checkpoint over there. So it kind of resets it so you can test things to make sure it's actually working. And if it for some reason doesn't work, you can hit this button and then hit it again, and it'll reset the whole thing. So you can, just try it again if you mess with some other options. And one other thing that I need to mention before we go is actually the game type itself. Now, I did make my own game type. If you can see right here, it says Duquesne 23's Mongoose Race. Now, this is a race game type that I made specifically for my map, for my Volcanic Panic map. One thing you need to remember, if you have a race, checkpoint system and everything on your map, let's say like my Volcanic Panic one has 5 checkpoints. That means if you want to do 3 laps, you need to actually go to game options of the game type itself and change the general options of the game type and scroll down and change it to 15 points. Every single time you go through a checkpoint, that adds 1 point to your score. So basically, if you want to have 3 laps and you have 5 checkpoints total on your map, if you want to do 3 laps, you got to do it up to 15 points itself. Now, this is sometimes can be problematic if you don't know exactly how many checkpoints a map has. So you can always just crank it up to like 50 or something like that. So that way you can at least do a couple laps on a map itself. So, you know, you can go ahead and make sure you do that whenever you download, you know, a game type or you make your own race game type. I do have mine in the description. And, you know, it does have the starting vehicle as a mongoose because that is what most race maps actually use. And, of course, it's the only mongoose because that, of course, looks a lot better. But how you change what starting vehicle you want is basically you go over to the starting weapons and vehicles. You scroll down right here, and then you could choose whatever vehicle you want. If it's a Warthog, if it's a Banshee, if it's a Wraith, if it's a Ghost, whatever. You can choose any vehicle you want right here. And then, of course, you can basically keep all these the same unless you're, you know, going for something a little bit more specific. So guys, I hope y'all enjoyed this tutorial here. I hope it really helped a lot of y'all out for the race game type. I hope it wasn't too confusing. I know it was a fairly long tutorial. I tried to cut it down as much as I can to where I can explain everything. But again, guys, you know, be sure to like this video, subscribe for more Halo 5 tutorials. I do have other race tutorials coming on especially how to build a racetrack. And so I guess that is it, guys. And remember, let's forge a new Halo.